The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
What is up, everybody? It is time for yet another edition of Need to Know. Everything you need to know each week here on TKR. My name is Kip Kiefer. If you're joining us for the first time, we like to tell you some things to think about, not what to think or how to think. We encourage you to always make your own decisions, make your own analysis, think for yourself and reach your own conclusions. And that's kind of at the core of what I want to talk about today. As we mow along here on this interesting saga of the second presidency of one Donald J. Trump. And again, people that have listened a lot to the program know that I am certainly absolutely blown away by the energy and the accomplishments so far in the initial months of this second term of President Trump. Only the second president ever to serve two terms non-consecutively. Of course, Trump was president from 2016 to 2020, lost the controversial 2020 election to the dancing bear, figurehead, marionette, puppet out front, placeholder Joe Biden, really the de facto third term of President Barack Obama, as it's turned out to be. I saw an interesting thing. Those of you who have Facebook accounts know that about once every couple of days, they put up on this date, and they have like the memories of posts you've made on these days in previous years. And one came up on June 28th, which was 2 days ago. It was a long rambling post I made, and I'm trying, and I think I've pretty much succeeded. I tended to use Facebook a little bit as a blog for a lot of years because I didn't have a formal blog of my own, never really developed that. Facebook became, since it was my page, there were times where I would really, pontificate about a subject at length. And I came to realize, several people had said it to me as well, that, when you write something that long, people are going to lose interest in the first couple of paragraphs. I hope on this verbal blog, which is Need to Know, that you don't lose interest right away. Sometimes I go too long, and I'm trying to even tighten that up. But I actually surprised myself because I've changed my style in this last 5 or 6 months. I don't write the long rambling, sort of articles anymore because some people have told me that that's not a very effective way to communicate on that medium. So with all that being said, the one I wrote on June 28th of 2024 was right as the debate was happening, the ill-fated debate that really altered the course of the 2024 election, when Donald Trump was running again against Joe Biden. But it was so odd, that June debate last year, because it was the earliest presidential debate ever held, and it was before either candidate had been certified at their respective party conventions to be officially the candidate for president. They both, of course, overwhelmingly had gotten at least in the Republican case, the support of the Republican primary voters, to the resounding point where Trump basically blew out Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, and became the presumptive nominee. Joe Biden, of course, was the nominee by fault because the DNC did not really allow any other candidates to get in the race. There were a couple of guys that were figurehead sort of token opposition uh, just to have somebody else on the ballot in some states. But anyway, Biden was basically anointed the candidate, and when that debate took place, everything became so apparent. So I wrote on that day a long dissertation about everything I've been telling you throughout this presidency of Joe Biden came to pass in the course of that debate. It validated everything that I had been writing about his cognitive and physical decline, about the fact that he didn't have the energy level to even sustain parts of days, the facts that this guy was working basically 3-day weeks, if that, and only part time hours before going off to Delaware every single weekend to just be out of sight. And of course, all of the spin was on that he's working the whole time. He's got more energy than anybody. He's running circles around us. Joe Scarborough said on MSDNC that it's the best version of Joe Biden he'd ever seen. Lies, 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 mistruths. And it was so obvious to anybody who was paying attention that this president was in tremendous decline. Anyway, the long and short of the story was I wrote this long article about that a year ago. Now, here we are in June 2025, a year later. We all know what happened. The party leaders interceded. They did not force Joe Biden, the Democrats, out of the race because of his cognitive decline. In fact, that was one of the biggest reasons that they wanted him to be still running, because he was not in a mental position to make any substantive decisions. He was certainly complicit to doing anything that his wife and his handlers instructed him to do in terms of where to be and what to attempt to say, which he seldom executed properly. I just can't get out of my mind one of the campaign speeches. So this was not some kind of rapid decline in the midst of his presidency. Before he was ever elected, he actually said at a campaign rally, "Our party believes in truth, not facts." I've said this to you before. The definition of truth is information based on irrefutable fact. You can't believe in truth if you don't believe in facts. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's like saying illegal immigration. That's a complete, misspoken phrase, because immigration is a legal process. If it's illegal, it's not immigration. So I cringe because even people on the right say illegal immigrants. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. An immigrant is a legal person in the country. An illegal immigrant is a criminal. It's somebody who's entered in violation of the Constitution and American law. Those kind of terms, truth and facts, Joe Biden was already just a walking gaffe machine, and you knew that was just a lit fuse, that this was going to be more and more of this throughout his presidency, which is why they kind of kept him, not making appearances, not speaking very much, never granting interviews. The Trump presidency is so different. Everything is right out in the open, transparent. You can ask him any question, he's going to answer it. It's just a completely different era now under this White House as opposed to the previous one. I bring all this up because I find it fascinating as we watch the events unfold as we speak here, coming to you on this Monday morning of 4th of July week, the final day of June. Today's the 30th on the Monday. And it's fascinating to me watching the process in Washington right now in the Senate. It's gone on all weekend. The big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump is pushing hard through Congress with all of the campaign promises that he was elected with a sweeping majority, dominating the overwhelming amount of counties in the country, winning all 7 swing states. Just a remarkable accomplishment for a former president who had everything thrown at him in terms of everything from arrests and bookings and mugshots and trials and court proceedings, assassination attempts, character assassination in every story from the traditional media and underground left wing media. Uh, this guy had been through the absolute ringer and still standing, still taking the oath of office and going back into a second presidency. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Because I am highly impressed and praiseworthy of this president. I hate it when you do say something positive and you get somebody who writes or speaks to you and says, "Well, you're just a Trump lover." I'm not a Trump lover. I'm an American lover. I love my country. I love the founding principles. I love the forefathers who had this unbelievable motivation and dedication and total devotion to making this country become the shining city on the hill which all eyes were cast upon. That was the charge coming to this country, to make it exceptional. And it is exceptional. There are so many examples of it being exceptional, but it's so distressing that we live in a time where there are so many people who have been indoctrinated and just outright brainwashed to hate this country, to be just manipulated into thinking that this is some kind of evil, uh, unbalanced, unfair, immoral, nation in its founding principles and its guiding 200 and almost 50 years. We're starting year 250 right now of where we are and how we've gotten there. That's the problem, though. Because it's indoctrination now and not education, and because information is completely twisted around to fit the narrative of those who hate this country and believe that our role is not to be America and Americans first, but to be some kind of good global citizen, and just be wide open to all the peoples of the world who want to come here, and to be subservient to all of these places on earth that American assistance is needed to the point where our own countrymen, our own fellow citizens, our own fellow American brothers and sisters, their children and their children's children to come are all being, cursed now with this irresponsible approach to globalism as opposed to putting the needs of America and Americans first. And it's an evil and it's a nefarious movement that a lot of people buy into. You don't have to look any further than New York City and the mayoral primary of last week, which I think we touched on, where, and in fact, I can't remember for sure, but if you missed it, a Muslim socialist candidate. And when I say socialist, it's not the Bernie Sanders, I'm a Democrat socialist. This guy is a full blown, I believe in socialism. I hate capitalism. Capitalism is unfair and unjust, and it's inequality, and everybody needs to be equal. And I agree, everybody needs to be equal. But what better system in terms of a ideology? You have socialism where everybody ties for first place, but that excludes the power brokers, the government, who is in charge of every aspect of money distribution, of opportunities, of choices for its citizens. Socialism has been tried over and over and over again throughout the world, and it has failed miserably and has cost literally the lives of tens or maybe even hundreds of millions of people. When conversions in the Soviet Union and China to communism took place, the results were catastrophic. In China, the government basically confiscated everything from agricultural products to all the industries. Everything became the government. And so many of their citizens, when Mao Zedong seized power, literally starved to death. There were people in waves in the Soviet Union after the Great Revolution with Marx and then Stalin, the most brutal dictator of all time. If you said a discouraging word or were even suspected of not being totally on board with the platform, there were mass executions, people literally just disappearing from the face of the earth. And those that they didn't kill were exiled to God-forsaken places in the coldest areas, Siberia, and other places in the most remote areas of northern Russia. That's how they dealt with their situations. So Margaret Thatcher said it best. The former great prime minister of the United Kingdom, that the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money to spend. This collective, everybody ties for first place, and we dole out in tiny increments what you need to barely survive. Americans are never, ever going to sign off on that kind of agenda. So, anyway, the big, beautiful bill continues to be debated. The whole process is so absurd because Chuck Schumer demanded that every word of the 980-page bill be read for the record in the Senate. This is a practice that started back in the earliest points of our country, and it was necessary then because these laws were written on a piece of parchment a lot of times, and it was the only copy of the legislation there was only one paper that had all of that on there. So of course that needed to be read to anybody who was wanting to know what all the details of what they were going to vote on. Now, of course, all printed, all distributed. Everybody has a copy of the bill to read and review. To read this, typically now in legislative procedures, a motion is made to waive the reading of the bill, and it's usually unanimous consent. But no, Chuck Schumer insisted it had to be read. It was a stall tactic. Now they're in another stall tactic called Vote-a-Rama. All of this stuff is so comical and stupid. Vote-a-Rama is simply a endless process. It could take up to 14 or 15 hours today. They might still be at this at 2 or 3 o'clock this morning, where different legislators stand up and propose an amendment to be tacked on to the bill that's being considered. And there will be some ridiculous amendments, particularly raised by the other side. But even a couple of the holdout Republicans might try to intercede and put whatever their big objection is. It just holds the process up. Right now, it's pretty well established that the vice president would not have to come to the Senate because Ron Johnson, who was one of the holdouts, the senator from Wisconsin, has now affirmed that he will be a yes vote. So that means it's 51-49 right now if everything holds steady, but we've got to go through this 24-hour period of reading the bill. Now we're going to go through the ridiculous process of these constant amendments and stall tactics. It's just ridiculous that this is still part of modern day legislation in an era where everybody has a copy of the bill and everybody knows that it has enough votes to pass. I don't know what the strategy is here. Maybe they're hoping that a couple of the Republicans have fatal cardiac episodes or something, or maybe a meteorite will hit the Capitol, or some other kind of miraculous situation going into the stall game. You remember in basketball before we had a 24-second clock in college basketball, a lot of teams would just hold the ball or pass it around, not shoot, just run the clock out. But that's when you were winning the game. You didn't do that when you were losing. The Democrats are losing. And if you're losing, running the clock and trying to stall is not a strategy that makes any sense whatsoever. So that's what's going on in Washington now. And you're getting all of this media coverage, all of these falsehoods, the legacy media, the mainstream media, as Rush Limbaugh so aptly called them, the drive-by media, are reporting furiously on all of these aspects of the bill. They keep scaring people. They're telling this is going to cost the lives of literally of thousands of Americans because they're slashing Medicaid benefits. It is a lie, folks. No Medicaid benefits that are legally being paid out to qualified recipients are under the microscope any way, shape, or form in this bill. It is people that are scunging off the system. There's examples. There's one guy, it's been discovered, that has 14 different false accounts in 14 different states where he's applied under different names and gets Medicaid benefits. There are tons of able-bodied Americans who took advantage of Medicaid benefits and have been on and being paid for months and months, even years, when there's absolutely nothing wrong with them and they don't qualify. There are tens of thousands of illegal invaders in this country, not citizens that have found some kind of way to be qualified for Medicaid benefits. These are the cuts that are being made to that program to take away the people that are gaming the system because the government's gotten too big and too bloated and is too arrogant to monitor their activities and fix the abuses. So it's easier just to write the checks and send them out than to do the work. And you can't do the work because so many government employees since the COVID year of 2020 have never come back to work at all. They're still at home. They're watching Netflix. They're out, doing whatever they're doing, walking their dog in the neighborhood. And every 2 weeks in their mailbox, here comes their paycheck for whatever bureau, department, or agency they're in. And you can bet your bottom dollar that a lot of them are associated with Medicaid or Medicare. They're reportedly only about 12% of government workers in Washington are actually back on the job. Most of them are still at home, working supposedly from home, but not being productive and not really doing anything to earn their paycheck and existence. That's the bloated abuse in our government right now. And the big, beautiful bill is going to put an additional, on average, $10,000 additional dollars in the pockets of Americans, every American, take-home pay. It is also going to prevent the biggest tax increase the last day of this year, which if this bill is not passed, your taxes are going to go up tremendously. It also incentivizes manufacturing in this country, which is going to lead to all kinds of rebirth and regrowth of industry. Small towns that are literally ghost towns that used to have manufacturing plants and a viable economy are going to be revived. This is going to create almost 7 million new high-paying jobs in the manufacturing sector for this country. We're going to get back to building our own products instead of farming them out to these third world countries around the globe, paying slave labor so they can benefit from those opportunities in the manufacturing sector. It was a move made under Democrat administrations for Wall Street, which completely shut down Main Street in so many towns. Now the pendulum has swung the other way. The tariffs that were so controversial already paying off, but they go hand in hand with this bill. My only criticism of Trump implementing the tariffs back in March was it was a little too early. It should have been done more in coordination with all of this economic adjustment that the big, beautiful bill is going to create. It is going to fund the military, and I think we saw an example of being the most modern military in the world in the tremendous success of the elimination of the Iranian nuclear process. Don't believe one for 1 second that all of these reports that it was ineffective and it's just basically a temporary um, distraction for the Iranians. It was decimated, it was obliterated, and it was American technology and the brilliance of the American military that made that happen. And I talked about last week on the show traditional warfare. Right now, the Ukrainian conflict with the Soviets. Well, they're not the Soviets anymore, but they're Russians. But basically, the whole goal of all of this from the Russian standpoint is to try to restore the Soviet Union. So, pardon me for the Freudian slip there. But the bottom line is that kind of warfare is going to be obsolete. Wars now are going to be fought with technology from secured bunkers, with AI and the most sophisticated electronic equipment that we can ever imagine, and some things we have no capacity to imagine. All of this race for control of space. If you don't think weaponry is part of that equation, you're not looking at it from a very practical standpoint. So get your information from the right sources, but get your information from multiple sources. That's a big problem in this country. And I'll wrap this up by saying that I'm a little irritated that so much misinformation is out there. And of course, we've talked about the proprietors of this misinformation basically are looking in a mirror and projecting their own tactics on the side of righteousness, who are America first, who are Constitution first, who are believers in our founding principles and our rule of law and our democracy, our representative republic. And these people that want to tear all that down project the image on the other side, the right side, which, pun intended, right and righteous are hand in hand in this discussion. But they project that and suggest that the constitutional crisis is trying to get back to the Constitution and that chaos is ensuing throughout the country because of these Trump policies. Well, they're right about chaos, but the chaos is basically ground zero centered on the agenda that they've meticulously tried to build throughout this entire century that Donald Trump is tearing down brick by brick to get us back to the original principles, to get us back to the Constitution. And if you look at, and it's amazing to me, the statistics of how many people get their information from broadcasts like this. And again, I'm thrilled if you glean any information from my thoughts and my perceptions, but I encourage you, unlike my counterparts on the other side, I encourage you to go listen to what they're saying, to go and try to make some sense of their arguments, to listen to as many different perspectives as possible, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to reach conclusions on your own. But it does require, being an American citizen, there's one major requirement. You have to participate in the process. And by engaging in information and being aware of what's going on, that's your responsibility as an American. I have so many people in my own family. Oh, I can't watch all that. I can't can't pay attention. It's too depressing. I don't want to get involved in politics. It's not politics you need to be involved in. It's your country. It's your responsibility to do so. But if you get information from this far left, and so many people now identifying that podcasts and social media is where they get their information, you're really limiting yourself. You need to be careful. You need to get balance, and you need to get information from all sides, because I get two teases, maybe three a day. I never subscribed. I don't know how I'm so fortunate to get this, and I'm being facetious. There is a guy named Brian Tyler Cohen. He's a 36-year-old former actor who's now a YouTube leftist progressive activist, and he is a podcaster and a poster constantly. And the way he hooks people, and I've probably clicked on a couple of the headlines because they're so sensational. It's usually only 2 or 3 words with ... It doesn't tell you the whole thought. But Mr. Cohen has things like this morning: Trump humiliates ... Trump meltdown ... Trump in full-scale panic mode ... It's these red meat thrown to these starving left-wing morons who are convinced and have been convinced that Donald Trump is the Antichrist who's destroying this country, when conversely what he's doing is restoring it and putting your needs as an American citizen first. And again, I am America first, but I am American first before anything else. I am standing tall and representing in my thoughts and perspectives the best case scenario for the lives of my American brothers and sisters, their children, their grandchildren, and all the descendants to come. And with that thought, encouraging you to get all the perspectives you can gather, make your own decisions, do your own thinking, and vote with your conscience, not your indoctrinated misinformation that you're totally barraged with. If anybody's watching Donald Trump day to day, and you can't help it, he's the most programmed person, the most visible person in the world. You see exactly where he's coming from. You see what his demeanor is. The suggestion that he's melting down and in full-scale panic mode after all that he's been through is absolutely absurd. Don't buy it. Don't believe it. The ship is being righted. This bill will pass this week, and it will usher in an unbelievable revival of this country, and the left absolutely hates that thought. With that, I'm going to sign off and wish all of you a happy 249th birthday for our country. You know, the Declaration of Independence was actually passed in the Continental Congress on July 2nd of 1776, but it took 2 days to write it all up, so it wasn't adopted till July 4th, which is why we have it on this day. And coincidentally, 2 of the greatest statesmen and future presidents at that convention were John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, both who in 1824 died on the same day, July 4th, 1824, one of those great historic facts that you can't make up. I'm Kip Kiefer. That's Need to Know for this week. Happy birthday, America. God bless all of you, my fellow Americans. We'll be back next week.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.